Hello, I'm Tom Stapleton, Executive Director of the Wakefield Community Access Television Station. And today we have a special guest with us, a woman named Amy Luckiewicz. And just recently, Amy and her mother came back from the Philippines, and they did have a wonderful story to tell us. Can you tell us, Amy, a little bit about what you did in the Philippines?
Sure. So I've been a Rotarian for about 10 years now, and several years ago I had gone to Honduras on a water project, and I just felt like I was ready to do another international project. And years back, I remember hearing about Rotoplast through Rotary, and they have a very strong connection. Rotoplast was actually founded by Rotarians out in San Francisco, and it's a medical organization that primarily focuses on providing cleft palate, cleft lip, and sometimes burn surgeries for children and young adults and all over the world. And so I thought maybe I was ready to go try that out, and I invited my mom, and she and I signed up for the most recent mission, which was sponsored by our local Rotary district and our local Rotary Club, in fact, to Cebu, Philippines. Hey, back home again. We are with volunteers, and they are from the Rotaract Club.
Hi guys. Hello.
Your hands.
From Philippines to Boston. Hi. We're the Rotaract Club of Cebu Port Center. Hi Boston.
So I promised them that I would send this around to our Rotaract clubs back at home. So hi guys. Hi. Hi. Traveling over there, so I could talk a little bit about how we got there, because it was interesting. My mom and I were a team of 8 volunteers from our area, so 6 Rotarians and 2 non-Rotarians, one of whom was my mom. And we went to San Francisco to meet up with the medical team. So we were the non-medical team. We flew to San Francisco to meet up with the medical team and pick up all of our equipment, because everything that we brought to the Philippines, we brought with us, all of our supplies. Everything from medications, anesthesiology medications, surgical tools, because we wanted to make sure that they worked and they were in the best shape they could, but also we wanted to leave some things behind for the hospital we were going to be working at. So we met up with everybody in the airport. Greetings. We had never met these people before. That was a great opportunity, and we still keep in touch, of course. From San Francisco, we met everybody. We flew to the Philippines, and one of the things that struck in my mind when we were flying was that we were sitting next to a Filipino woman, and we, by the way, were all dressed alike. So we had kind of like a polo shirt with the Rotoplast logo on it, and we all looked like we were all working together. And we got asked, who are you and why are you traveling together? And this woman who was sitting next to me said, tell me about what you're going to do. She was an American, but born in the Philippines. And we explained that we were going over to do work, doing surgeries on some children. And she just turned and said, thank you for everything that you're doing for our children. And that became the common thing, that everywhere we traveled, people were saying thank you for taking care of our children. And that really stuck in my mind. And then once we landed, we got to go to the hospital right away. It was a long trip. Yeah, the entire trip was 2 weeks.
2 weeks, okay.
Yes.
Well, tell us a little bit about the hospital.
Sure.
What was that like?
We had a great benefit in that most Rotoplast missions, we call them medical missions, you only have 2 operating rooms or 2 operating beds. We had 2 operating rooms, but we had 3 beds. So that was a benefit to us. And the hospital itself was the Seventh-day Adventist hospital. And the challenge with that is that everybody, because we were associated with a religious hospital just for the surgeries, thought we were on a medical mission. And so that was not true, although, everybody takes off on Saturdays, so we couldn't operate on Saturdays. But when you walk into the hospital, it was tough conditions. The first floor out back had its own external oxygen factory. And a lot of trash, and that was really hard showing up at this medical facility. But their surgical wing, we took over, and I can't say enough about the local nurses being willing to give us the space. That was really amazing. My job was medical records keeper, and I took over one of the only air-conditioned rooms in the entire building.
Oh, wow.
So I should mention that nothing was air-conditioned, and it was very, very hot.
No air in the surgery?
In the surgical rooms, we did have 2, I wouldn't say fully functioning air conditioners, but there were air conditioners in the surgical rooms. But where the patients recovered, and this was really interesting, was up on the top floor, the 5th floor. To get there, we would take the surgeries happen on the 2nd floor. We would take the elevator to the 4th floor, and then our transport guy, Bob Wood from the Peabody Rotary Club, would push them up a rusty ramp. And may I just say that in rainstorms and thunderstorms, that could have been really scary. The winds were a little rough.
Yeah.
To the top floor, which was actually a basketball court that they converted into the pre- and post-op recovery. Okay, so I'm walking down from David's floor just so you can see what it's like a little bit. This is a ramp, and there's some holes in it. So this is the way that Bob Wood is bringing the patients up. From the 2nd floor, he has to go up this ramp. There's an elevator to the 4th floor, but he still has to take a ramp to the 5th floor. It's the only way. This is the view, and this is what's going on. We're right in the middle of the city. That's over where the stairs are, which is the only other way to get up. We've also been told that if there's an earthquake, this is how we have to get out. So there was an earthquake a few years ago, and we are at risk, and we've all kind of gone through what we're supposed to do if there's an earthquake, but we'll have to evacuate the patients from the 5th floor and get them all the way down. So this is the only way to do it. It was virtually outside. There were no windows. Yeah, it was. The wind came through, which sometimes gave a little bit of a relief, but I keep saying the unsung heroes were the people that worked up on that 5th floor, because they were up there 24/7. You know, our surgery days, we were at the hospital by 6:45 in the morning, and sometimes didn't leave till 8 o'clock at night, and they were up there the entire time unless they came down for a meal break. But no AC, and it was warm.
Wow.
Especially for us New Englanders.
Humidity too?
Tons.
Oh, yeah.
It was, over 100%. It was just, sweat dripping off. And
so somebody with hair like yours would
it was always up.
It's not going to work. Walk me through a process for the patient.
Sure. So we were there for 2 weeks, and that included travel time.
Yeah.
We had 9 hospital days, but it started with an intake. And the intake day, we saw over 180 patients. And so let's say you came in and you were bringing your child, or sometimes you're a senior mother, or whoever it might be. The first person they saw was me, and so my job was to create a record for them. That included also our photographers took headshots so that we could do before and after and detail of who we were seeing. So hi everybody, we're here with Bob Arsenault, and he's, by the way, a Rotarian for about a week.
Yes.
Yeah, a week. And so Bob, tell us what you do.
I am the quartermaster on this mission, and I liken it to being Radar O'Reilly on MASH. Whatever Colonel Blake or Colonel Potter needs, I get them.
We've been calling him Radar because that's so true. And we're up on the 4th floor right now. And so this space over here, if you can picture this, all day yesterday was completely full of people. We think we probably saw, we had 176 charts, but we think with families we saw maybe like 300 people come through here. It's kind of quiet right now, but at 3 o'clock, it's about lunchtime, our time, but at 3 o'clock we're going to hold a drop-in clinic to see if there are any other qualified patients to have any more surgery. So we'll probably be involved in that. You certainly will, because he's going to be running, grabbing our supplies, whether it be, even file folders or the thermometers for the nurses. That's what Bob does, and so very helpful. Oh, can you talk a little bit about today in surgery?
Big treat. Was able to go in and see some surgeries, everything from bringing the child in to anesthetizing them, intubating them, and watching the surgeons start to mark the lips and how they were going to proceed with the cleft lips. So it's been a very great day.
And they're very cool about letting us watch and observe. I've been spending some time in the recovery room, which I hope to get some video of in a little bit. And so we will check in with everybody later. Miss you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. So once you went through getting your chart started, every single patient or prospective patient saw an anesthesiologist, a nurse, had their blood drawn. We wanted to make sure that these patients had the proper hemoglobin levels. They were the proper weight, all these sorts of things. They all saw dentists, which for some of these children was the first time they ever saw a dentist. They all saw a pediatrician. I mentioned the anesthesiologist, and they all saw the surgeon, because the surgeons really needed to see if this was something that was within their scope in this hospital or if they needed to be referred out. And so patients were filtered out that way. Once they were filtered in, they were scheduled for a surgical day, and most of our patients came from other islands, and some of them had traveled days to get there, so they had to find a place to stay. Otherwise, they stayed up on the 5th floor on cots, and it was 2 cots per family. So if you brought 3 adults with you, that was a problem.
Okay, we are now on the 5th floor, and this is Dave Boudreau's section. So tell us what you do up here.
So I'm the ward coordinator, and behind me there are people assigned to a bed, and they are having surgery tomorrow. There's 15 scheduled for tomorrow. And then on this side of the gymnasium, there are 15 patients that have been operated on today and are in recovery, and they'll be, if all goes well, they'll be released tomorrow.
Great. And so these people sleep overnight?
They sleep overnight the night before surgery to make sure that they haven't had anything to eat or drink after midnight.
So can you talk a little bit about what this room is like? You know, you can see there's no air conditioning.
It is a fairly, it's a gymnasium with a cement floor. It's about 95 degrees and 99% humidity. It rains every day around noon. We're very wet.
Yeah, muggy. So this is what Dave does, and he's a trooper because he's up here all day. And so we will check in with you guys later.
It's for the kids.
Bye.
Once the surgeries happened, they were brought down, and we had a volunteer who played with the kids, got them ready.
Yeah.
I will also say that every patient got a handmade quilt from many Rotary clubs, but also from quilting circles. That was amazing. There was actually a couple, they were labeled, and there was one from the Maine, a quilting circle in Maine, so that was kind of neat. They got toys, and they were allowed to bring those into surgery. After surgery, they recovered in what's called the PACU, the post-anesthesia care unit, which is where my mom got to hold all the babies. And once they woke up, their vitals were taken, and they were moved up to the 5th floor.
Now, you probably got pretty close to some of the patients, or some of the children or whatever. And tell us a little bit about how that was for you.
Sure. So in my job in medical records, I was kind of in an office setting most of the time.
Yeah.
So I really wanted to go out and meet the patients. And that happened, it didn't take a lot, but it also happened when they were in recovery and I would go visit my mom. They gave me great access, by the way. I was allowed to go wherever, and they let me in the operating room on a couple of times, which was an amazing experience. But definitely some patients stuck out. There was a young man named Carlos who was 16 years old, and his entire life, from the time he was born till that day, he covered with a scarf his mouth because he didn't want anybody to see his cleft lip. And after his surgery, which went very well, he woke up and he asked my mother if she had a mirror. By the way, everybody pretty much spoke English. That was really helpful, although we did have volunteer translators. And so my mom handed him a mirror, and he said, "Is that me?" He didn't recognize himself. And she said, "Yes," and he just kept making the sign of the cross. And I think about that, about how grateful he was to receive the surgery. And the next thing he said was, I'm hoping to have a girlfriend soon. And so we remember him. Yeah. One of my other favorite patients was a 25-year-old girl. Her name was Virginia. And
so she has had this problem for 25 years?
Yeah, so her problem she had a surgery when she was younger on a cleft lip, but she still had her cleft palate. It was never operated on. And one of the things I didn't know about, and I don't know why I didn't think of this, is that if you don't have a palate, food goes into your nose when you eat. There's also a severe speech impediment. So Virginia, although she had been the first person in her family to be educated, she was in her 3rd year of engineering school.
Wow.
She dropped out because she was being bullied because of her speech. And so she came to us hoping that we could fix that. And 2 things really stuck out with me from her. Is one, that she had dropped out because of this bullying. And her cousin was with her, and she said, if we lived in America, this never would have happened. My cousin would never have been bullied. And I couldn't get her to believe that this happens everywhere. People get bullied everywhere. And she said, nope, not in America. My cousin would never have been bullied. So that really, I remember her for that. And the other thing was that we were unable to operate on her palate. So it was hard to give that news. And the reason we couldn't operate on her palate was because after age 7, your speech patterns are set. So even if we did give her a palate, it wouldn't have helped her speech unless she had some severe
Speech therapy. Yeah,
earlier,
yeah.
which she had not had. So our dentist fit her for what's called an obtuator, which is an insert into the roof of your mouth, and she was going to receive some speech therapy. And I just learned that the local Rotarians, that we had a partner Rotary Club in Cebu, is going to help her go back to college.
Wow.
So I remember her.
Yeah, some great stories here.
She was great, yeah.
I mean, the endings and everything are good. Were there any memorable moments?
Tons of memorable moments. I mean, it started when we arrived in the Philippines and we were greeted unexpectedly by almost an entire Rotary Club and their spouses, hugging us, giving us necklaces. We didn't know, they had a big banner of welcome for us. We didn't know they were going to do that, so that was the first surprise. Another memorable moment for me, I didn't get to witness, actually. So there was a little girl, her name was Mecca, and she was 7. And I get a little emotional with her sometimes because I think about her a lot. And she had a very severe cleft lip. But she had shown up to Rotoplas last year. And when they examined her last year, they discovered a very severe heart condition. So in the past year, she's had heart surgery, which is great. So she was here to have her her lip repaired. And we couldn't operate on her because our surgeons wanted, in their intelligence, very smart, to have a cardiologist in the room present. Yeah. So Mecca and her grandmother waited, I think she was there 5 days, for about 9 hours a day, waiting for a local cardiologist to show up, and he never did. And this little girl, we have a picture of her. She loved taking selfies with me, and what I remember about her is that I remembered her name, and every time I said her name, she lit up. And I just learned that a month ago she had her lip surgery. So
great.
Yeah, I wasn't there to witness that, but I do remember that one.
So did you have any downtime? And if you did, what did you do?
So I mentioned how long our days were.
Yeah.
We had one day off, and that was the day that the Seventh-day Adventist Hospital closed. So that was Saturday. And my mom was taken by the local Rotary Club. She's a golfer.
Oh, boy.
And they treated her like royalty. She went out and played golf with the guys. She beat them all, I think. She was great. And I was able to go and tour the city of Cebu, which was, I knew nothing about. It's one of the Christian capitals of the country, so it's very religious. And it's actually where Magellan landed and was killed. So we learned some of the city history. That was interesting. And we had one night where my mom and I were able to have a little downtime, and we decided to go get our nails done. And it was like 9 o'clock at night. And so we were wearing our matching Rotoplas shirts, and the beauticians were asking us what we were doing. And we said, we're here doing cleft lip surgeries. And I knew, because not only did I medical records, I kept the schedule, that we had some openings coming up. And I said there were 4 people in that beauty parlor. I said, does anybody know anybody with a cleft lip or palate? And of the 4, 3 of them did. Yeah. I couldn't believe it. So I said, get them on the phone and bring them down to the hospital. And they said, no, we're not Seventh-day Adventists. And we said, this is not religious at all. Bring them down. And one little girl showed up. Her name is Eliza. And I can't help it. She had her surgery. And I can't help but think that how weird things happen, that if we hadn't got our nails done, if those women hadn't asked us what our shirts meant, we never would have mentioned it. Yeah. And this little girl wouldn't have a palate. And it's funny how things happen. And her mom brought her back on the last day of us being in the hospital as a post-op. Mm-hmm. We checked them again and brought her in for us to see how she's doing, and she was doing great.
Oh, that's a nice story.
Yeah,
huh?
That was memorable for me, yeah. And that was on our, because we had an evening off,
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
So you spent 2 weeks there, and pretty busy.
Very
obviously,
busy.
for the 2 weeks. Sounds like you only had one day off.
Yep.
And when you left, how did you feel? I mean, because that's pretty intense.
It was pretty intense. So as I mentioned, I was a team of 8 from this area to go, and we all immediately were like, we want to come back. This particular site we were at had been running for 13 years straight. Mm-hmm. So Rotoplas runs a mission or a medical trip about once a month, or 12 a year. And when we came back, there was a mission going out to Bangladesh, for example. They go to South America, everywhere. But we really had made the connections with the local Rotary clubs, and we wanted to see these patients who were going to come back for the follow-up the next year. So I think all of us really wanted to go back. But the more I think about it, I would really kind of like to give up my spot to somebody who wants to have this experience. And in a way, I started to feel a little bit selfish. Like, if I go again, am I taking this experience away from somebody else? I don't know if that answers your question, but you have that tie to those people.
No, it does. Well, what I would like to we have a few minutes left here. Tell us how Rotary is not only involved in this, but has so many things going on worldwide. I mean, Rotary is an organization that is worldwide, over 1 million.
1.2 million members.
1.2 million Rotarians.
Yeah.
Just give us a little synopsis about Rotary and some of the things that that you've been involved with.
Sure. I mean, I can best describe it as we're a group of humanitarians.
Yeah.
And we do projects including, maternal and child health, literacy projects, health and hunger, disease prevention and treatment, peace and conflict resolution, and a million other things. And what I love about Rotary is that there's no restrictions on me. I can work locally, I can work internationally like I did on this project.
Yeah.
I can do both at the same time. I can have my hand in a water project while still doing, a dictionary project here in Wakefield. I love that flexibility. What I got to witness when I was traveling was how a Rotary Club in the Philippines works.
Right.
And like I like to say is that Rotary Clubs kind of take on different cultures depending on where you are, and that Rotary Club is all men. And that's not the experience here. We have very active women, especially in the Wakefield Rotary Club.
Yep.
And however, all the wives help run that show, let me tell you. And it was interesting to see how that Rotary Club ran. And the dedication, they had to raise money for transportation. By the way, we didn't pay for any of our food. I put on some weight. It was, we were fed nonstop. And they had to raise all that money because they believe in this. So that site has that as their pet project. And every Rotary Club, I think, has a project they get really attached to. Like the Wakefield Rotary Club, we'll be working on a canine project coming up. And that's what I love about Rotary is that there's no restrictions. If you want to work internationally, locally, 1 project, 5 projects, it's totally up to you.
And I know. I'm not trying to take away from the original subject here, but we do have an event coming up in about a week or so called the Polar Plunge.
Yes.
And there again, that's to raise funds to end polio.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's kind of considered an international project, but not entirely. So Pakistan and Afghanistan still have to eradicate polio, and this has been the mission of the Rotary Foundation, one of our missions, since 1985, actually. And so we're almost done. When we do it, we'll make history. It'll be the second disease to be eradicated after smallpox.
Right.
And although really Pakistan and Afghanistan are the only ones who are still endemic, everybody's at risk if you don't have your immunizations.
Right.
But what I love about this project is it raises money not just for the vaccine, but to develop the response systems when there's an outbreak to a communicable disease. And I'll give you an example. Last year when there was an Ebola outbreak, they called up our top polio people in Nigeria and said, we need your help containing this. And so that happened at the southern part of the country, and our polio people were kind of in the middle, and they responded, and Ebola was contained.
Yeah.
So when we say that we're investing in kind of what seems to be an international health problem, it's really strengthening the response systems worldwide.
Well, that again, I can't say enough myself about Rotary and some of the great organizations that they're involved with and some of the wonderful things that he's done. But I think what I would like to say is, as we close here, you and your mother working out there and sharing that experience, it's something that you'll take with you forever, and it's just truly amazing that something like that is available to people who wouldn't have the ability.
We're very lucky to be here and have
Very
that
nice.
access to health care. So.
Very good. All right. Well, thanks very much, Amy. Very
Thanks.
much. Appreciate it. And hopefully we'll have another show coming down the road.
For sure.
All right.
Thanks, Tom.
Okay. Bye now.